Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Before I start this talk, I'd like to say that I'm giving this talk on behalf of Richard Spellman, who couldn't be here today, and also like to acknowledge some of the co-authors on this work. It's a fairly large team that's been working on genomics in New Zealand. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, but as they say, roller coaster rides are the exciting ones. So at Lifecycle Improvement, or LIC, we've been investigating DNA technology since the early 1990s. DNA information was first used in our breeding scheme when we started to look at parentage testing in our sire proving scheme herds. And back in the 1990s, when we used that information, we found that over 15% of the daughters were misassigned to sire. So that was quite an interesting piece of information. And since then, we've been involved, or from that period, we've been involved in a QTL discovery program, and that was begun with a joint program with University of Liège and Holland Genetics. And the QTL discovered in that program, and a couple of them would have been DGAT and growth hormone receptor, were used in the breeding scheme using marker-assisted selection in the late 90s, but in the year 2000 that program was stopped, and the main reason that program was stopped is not because the markers didn't work, it was just that the costs of the reproductive technologies that we needed to use to make the most of those markers became prohibitively expensive. So at that point, Teo Musin came out with the famous genomic selection paper, and in 2006 we had the sequencing of the bovine and the ability to get large numbers of SNPs. And as they say, that's when everything started. So from 2006 onwards, we saw a dramatic change in the cost of genotyping. So before this point, we were lucky if we could do 300 or 400 microsatellites across individual animals, and then basically overnight we were in a situation where we could do 15,000 and up to 50,000 SNPs, and this is an extremely large technology shift. So this paper is going to focus on how we use this information in our breeding scheme and give you some of the insights and some of the consequences of using it. So for us, we've done genotyping on two different marker panels. We've used the 50K panel, and we've done approximately 23,000 individuals on the 50K panel, and we've done about 3,000 individuals on the HD panel. We haven't really used the HD panel much in our breeding scheme. We were hoping, given our crossbreeding population, that we would see quite an advantage of using the high-density panel, but unfortunately that really hasn't come to pass. If we look at the populations that we've been genotyping, we've genotyped all sires that have been progeny tested since 1995, and about 50% of the historical sires going back to 1985, and some of the foundation sires even before then. As you can see, there's the numbers on the screen there of the different breeds that we have genotyped. And in terms of the females, we've actually, in the process of genotyping the majority of the females that have been the daughters of these sires that were progeny tested in the last 5 years. And that's been a fairly significant undertaking. In terms of our genomic evaluation, when we started using what was known as the two-step process, where we include information based on the genomic relationship matrix and combine that with information derived directly from the traditional breeding values from our genetic evaluation system. The first stage involves the prediction of genomic breeding values for the genotyped individuals, and then we blend those genomic breeding values with ancestry information that wasn't present in this analysis to get a more rounded genomic breeding value. So that's okay for the genotyped individuals, but because we have farmers out there who are buying these genomic sires to use in their herds, we also have to propagate this information for individuals that are, or descendants that haven't been genotyped, so that when they get reports on their daughters from genomic sires, that genomic information is included in the numbers on those daughters. Now I'll come to the commercial use of genomically evaluated bulls. Our first release of genomic bulls was in 2008 when we released 2- and 3-year-old bulls. These bulls were individuals that had been in our progeny test pipeline, and they were selected on their first generation genomic proofs. In 2010, the decision was made not only to include the 2- and 3-year-old bulls, but also to include yearling bulls in the offering that was made for commercial use. When these bulls are marketed, they're marketed as what we call DNA proven, and that's a similar concept to what we market for our traditional breeding values, which are marketed as daughter proven. In New Zealand, we have quite a different system to the rest of the world. We're very much a seasonal calving pattern for our cows, and in a concentrated period, roughly between 2 and 3 months, we are pretty much inseminating 4 million cows. It's almost impossible to do that with the bull power we have with frozen semen, so we use fresh semen for our inseminations, and we use a team of bulls. So when a farmer signs up to buy semen from LIC, in most cases he's buying a team of bulls. So he's been doing that for years in daughter proven, and we also do that for DNA proven. But for DNA proven, we use much larger teams of bulls, really to mitigate the risk associated with the lower reliabilities on these bulls. When we've been selling these bulls, it's also quite different to the rest of the world. These DNA proven bulls were sold at a $5 premium, and the reason for doing that, it was acknowledged that these bulls were the daughter proven bulls, and LIC had gone out and promised that they would be higher and asked for a premium to be paid for those bulls. And since they weren't higher, and we decided that because we stand behind our product, we credited that $5 premium back to our farmers. We felt it was really important not to penalise people who were early adopters of the technology. With the adjustments that have been made to the bias in the last 2 or 3 years, or the last 2 seasons, this overestimation shouldn't occur. So looking forward to improving genomic estimation, there has been a considerable effort to improve the accuracy and reduce the bias of genomic evaluations in New Zealand. So we've done that in 2 ways. First, by increasing the number of genotyped animals, and second, by attempting to develop genomic evaluation systems that are better than the current ones that we have. So first, in terms of increasing our numbers of genotypes, we have exchanged genotypes with Ireland, Australia and New Zealand, and CRV and Breed New Zealand. And they are all countries which are similar sorts of production systems to New Zealand. So we have basically the pasture-based production systems of the world here. In terms of the genotypes in both Australia and Ireland, the utility is reduced simply because the genetic by environment interactions are just high enough so you don't really see major improvements in accuracy from including the genotypes in those countries. But in terms of the CRV and Breed New Zealand genotypes, which is approximately 1,000 New Zealand progeny tested bulls, we saw increases of an accuracy of approximately 3% for the milk production traits when we included those individuals in our training populations. So in terms of increasing numbers of genotypes, we're also genotyping females. So we've done approximately 25,000, and we're in the process right now of genotyping another 25,000 females. And the first 25,000 were done on the 50K chip. The second 25 will be done on the new 9K or 11K chip, and they'll be imputed up to 50K or high density. So most of these females that have been genotyped are the daughters of the progeny test sires. Integration of these females into our genetic evaluation system has been challenging to date, just because of the lower accuracy of the female information, and also the scale of the information that we're starting to get. It does present some challenges to us. We have also been looking at improving our genomic estimation tool. So from statistical tool development, we have been focusing, particularly in the last 12 months, on building a single-step method, which is a way of doing the entire evaluation using all the phenotypic records in one model for the New Zealand multi-breed population. And what we've seen with that, we've seen moderate to small increases in accuracy over our current method, but more importantly, we've also seen a reduction in the bias that we get from these evaluations. So just an example here, we've got 3 breeds, and this is the accuracy. So these are the squared correlations. So a lot of people are presenting correlations at these talks. So if we look at the first column and the last entry there for protein for the single-step method, when we say we have a realised reliability of 64 or 0.64, that's similar to a correlation of 0.8. So if we go from fair and average down through to the 2-step method, down to single-step, we can see that we do get slight improvements in accuracy from going from no genomics to some genomics to a better genomic model. And it's fairly consistent across all breeds and all traits. In terms of bias, this is the average across all the production traits here. But you can see as parent average itself is reasonably unbiased, although for Holstein and Jersey there's still some bias there even for parent average. Our current system, you can see there's quite a high level of bias, with those regression coefficients being about 0.7, when we hopefully should have them approximately about 1. But when we go to the single-step method, you can see that we get quite a reduction in that bias, and that's important going forward, especially for the credibility of our genomic proofs. So in terms of the future direction, LIC will continue to invest in improving the accuracy of genomic evaluation. The current focus is on increasing the number of genotype animals and increasing the density of the genetic markers. We have been active in the whole genome scheme sequencing. We've sequenced about 25 sires to date, but as I got an email this morning, there's another 25 to 50 sires coming in the next 2 or 3 months, which have been genotyped, which is going to cause some interesting issues in terms of data storage. But the reason we want to get that genomic sequence information is we really want to see if we can integrate that with biological information and start identifying the markers that have causative effects, and using those markers in our genomic evaluation, which will hopefully improve the accuracy. So conclusions. The introduction of genomic information into LIC dairy cattle breeding scheme has been a steep learning curve, particularly in the first 2 years. We've basically learnt by our mistakes, and we're moving forward, and we see it as a technology for the future. Dairy farmers have utilised the new technology, and the uptake has been greater than what we could ever have anticipated, even with the setbacks that we've seen. So in terms of ongoing investment, we will continue to invest in this area to both improve and maintain the accuracy of genomic selection. So that will be through increasing our numbers of genotyped animals, using sequencing, and improving statistical methods. And with the investment in the technology, I guess what we expect to see in time is that our breeding scheme that utilises the genomic information will get smaller and smaller, and so we'll have a smaller breeding scheme or progeny testing scheme as we get better and better accuracy with this information. So thank you.